Okay, so let us get back to our discussion. So I mean, it's been quite a while I was using all these apps, so it's taking some time to get used. And I hope like you are able to see me again on the presentation.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
But
yeah.
not present with me.
Okay, you are not able to see the Constituent Assembly debates.
Yes. No, no.
Can see now.
You can see now? Okay, yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so let us get started again. In subsequent classes, we will be discussing about the events which happened from 1757 to 50, 1757 to 1858. That is what we call it as Company Rule, and from 1858 to 1947, that is what we call it as Crown Rule. We will discuss in detail. Maybe when we actually cover some of the topics, then you will be in a better position to understand how the transformation has happened. Okay, so if someone wants to speak, you can go ahead. Otherwise, request to keep your microphone on mute. If someone forgot. Okay, so let us go back to the discussion. So we were discussing that. So I hope you all know that India got freedom on 15th of August 1947. Now I'm just going to ask you one question, like why we have got freedom on 15th of August? Any thoughts on that? Does anyone know about it? Why the British agreed to give us the freedom on 15th of August? Is there any speciality for 15th of August? Anything important? Any thoughts or any guesses?
because that was the last day of Britishers in India.
See, the question is why they have chosen 15th of August. Why is it 15? Why 15th of August was chosen as the day of transfer of power? Why not something uh, before or something after?
So the first time they declared, when Nehru ji declared, ki, free India, I think
Sir,
that was somewhere around this time.
Hmm.
1927, 1929 sessions.
Ah,
Hmm.
Lahore session probably, sir.
Yeah, you are on the right track, but that is something related to Republic Day. So why
Yeah.
26th January is chosen as the day of commencement of Constitution? It is because the 26th January was already celebrated by Congress. Okay, by Congress
Okay.
as Purna Swaraj Declaration. So this happened in the Lahore session of Congress 1929. So 1930 26th January we celebrate as Purna Swaraj Day. We used to celebrate as Purna Swaraj Day, and to commemorate that one, the Congress party started saying that we are going to wait for some time until 26th January for the commencement of Constitution, which will come back to that. Now, coming back to the earlier question, so any idea why the Britishers chose 15th of August as Independence Day for the transfer of power? Any important thing which happened? Any idea on that? See, 15th,
No idea.
yeah, 15th of August was chosen. The reason is the Japanese forces have surrendered to the British forces, the Allied forces, on 15th of August 1945. Now, what Britishers decided is why 15th of August was auspicious for the British is they felt that let us give the transfer of power, that is on the auspicious day for the British, 15th of August. That means there are a lot of politics which are there also. That means whenever we celebrate our Independence Day, we remind or okay, people gets reminded that British won over the Japanese. Okay, that's a different story. Many people do not remember. Okay, good that we do not remember, but that was the intention of the British for transferring the power on 15th of August. Because 2 years back, 1945, Japanese forces surrendered to the British forces. Now, before 1947, in 1946 itself, there was a proposal that the Constituent Assembly would be formed with all Indians. So, if you see, there are a lot of acts like 1909 Morley-Minto reforms, okay, 1919 the Government of India Act called Montagu-Chelmsford reforms, and 1935 Government of India Act, 1935. Now, in all these acts, Indians were not there. Okay, what Indians were asking that let us make the constitution for ourselves. It would not be decided by London. It would be decided from Delhi itself. So let us give the chance or opportunity to make the constitution by ourselves. That is the reason the Constituent Assembly was formulated, and this Constituent Assembly was set up under the Cabinet Mission Plan, and the Constituent Assembly took almost 3 years, which was to be precise 2 years 11 months, okay, and 18 days. So it is around 3 years the Constituent Assembly has taken for formulating the constitution. Now the Constituent Assembly worked in the manner of committees, okay, worked in the manner of committees. So there were various committees and led by the leaders. So what I suggest is uh, make a list of all the committees. This is the factual information, okay, but I can give you the notes for this. Make a list of all committees like Rules of Procedure Committee, Steering Committee, or Ad Hoc Committee on National Flag. All these are the committees. The Finance and Staff Committee, they were headed by Rajendra Prasad, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who is going to become the first president of independent India. And in addition to that, there are other committees like Order of Business Committee headed by K.M. Munshi, then Committee on Functions of Constituent Assembly by one of the senior leaders, G.V. Mavalankar. He is going to become the first Speaker of Independent India, Lok Sabha Speaker. Then the States Committee, okay, that is okay, it's the States Committee like negotiation with the states, how many states have to be formed, Union Powers Committee, Union Constitution Committee, all led by Jawaharlal Nehru. And there was a Provincial Constitution Committee, okay, and Advisory Committee on Fundamental Rights, Minorities, Tribal Affairs, led by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. And the most important of these committees is the Drafting Committee. And the Drafting Committee was headed by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He was the chairperson of the Drafting Committee. Now, the Constituent Assembly has, we will come back to the making of the Constitution later, but for time being, do remember that the Constituent Assembly has got 389 members. Okay, just make a note. I'll make a note here. It had 389 members. In total, it had 389 members. Of these 389 members, 292 were from British India and 93 members are from princely states. So I told that the India, which was governed directly by the British, was called British India. And British India over time was divided into 11 provinces. Okay, now maybe I'll just give you the idea of what are the 11 provinces. Okay, so let us think of this is India. Now in India, the British, for their administrative convenience, they have divided India into the 11 provinces. The first province is Assam. The whole of Northeast was called Assam. The second province is Bengal. Assam, Bengal. Then, okay, B-N-G-A-L. Okay, Bengal. Then United Provinces, UP, not Uttar Pradesh, United Provinces. Then Central Provinces, the states, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, these states. Okay, parts of these states. The map is something totally different. Then Odisha, which came into existence from 1935 Government of India Act. Odisha. Then can someone tell me what was the capital of Odisha at that point of time? It was Cuttack, not Bhubaneswar. Okay. Madras, M-A-D-R-E-S. Okay, don't. Okay, please bear with my writing. I'm writing with my mouse. Okay. Then we had Bombay. These were called British provinces. The British India was divided into 11 provinces. Assam, Bengal, United Province, Central Province, Odisha, then Madras, Odisha, then there was Bihar. Then Punjab, Sindh, Punjab, this is Punjab. Okay, this is Sindh, S-I-N-D-H, Sindh, and at the top we had Northwestern Frontier Province, NWFP. I hope all 11 are covered. 1, 2, 3, 4.
10, sir.
10. Assam, Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, UP, CP, Madras, Bombay, Sindh and Punjab, and NWFP. 10, 11. So these are the 11 provinces. Okay, now how to remember all the 11 provinces? So start from Northeast India, okay, and remember in pairs. So Assam and Bengal, one pair. Then UP-CP, another pair. Bihar, Odisha, one pair. Then Madras and Bombay, go to south and come to the north. Then Punjab and Sindh, and one thing, northwestern frontier province. This is some portions of Pakistan and Afghanistan today. I hope it's easier to remember with all the 11 provinces. Okay, Assam, Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, United and Central Province, Madras and Bombay, Punjab and Sindh, and lastly northwestern frontier provinces. Now these 11 provinces were administered by a governor. Each of these province, for each province there will be a governor. Governor of Madras, Governor of Bombay, Governor of UP, Governor of CP. In all these governors would report to a central authority that is called Governor General. Okay, all these governors would report to a central authority called Governor General. And we had unicameral legislature, which was made bicameral for some time, but later we had a unicameral legislature which was called Central Legislative Assembly. Today we call assembly for state level legislatures, but in those times the Union Parliament was called Central Legislative Assembly. Now we'll come back to this so next week, because I'll give some time for you to remember from 1757 to 1857 the developments. So once we come back, you'll be in a better position to understand all this. Now each of these provinces would be led by a governor, and at the top there would be Governor General. In addition to these provinces, this is called British India. There were princely states. Like a princely states, I'm marking in red. So there was Bhopal, there was Hyderabad, there was Jammu Kashmir, okay, there was Junagadh, there was Jodhpur. In addition to that, like Travancore, then Mysore, and Manipur. You can see lot of territories are there across India which were not part of British India. They were called princely states. Now this Constituent Assembly had members both from British India as well as from princely states. Both came together for the drafting of the Constitution. Now why it is important? Because in prelims you might get a statements like, in Constituent Assembly princely states did not participate. Okay, now this is a wrong statement, because princely states also participate in making of the Indian Constitution. We'll come back to this. Now this Constituent Assembly met for the first time on 9th of December 1946. So some dates also. 9th December 1946. And it completed its task on 26th November 1949. Now if you count, it is around 3 years. 1949. Okay, so it is around 3 years. It took almost 3 years for drafting of the Constitution. Now we will come back to what are the criticisms for the Constitution, okay, or what are the criticisms for the Constituent Assembly. But before that, do remember that it worked in the manner of committees. Now each of these committees were given a task. Okay, each of these committees were given a task, like Fundamental Rights Committee, Minorities Committee, okay, then the Tribal Committee, then the Minority, Northeastern Frontier Tribal Committee, then Housing Committee, then Business Committee, okay, Committee on Functions, and most importantly Drafting Committee. Each of these had their own task in drafting their portion of the Constitution. Now once this Constitution, the final draft of the Constitution is ready. Now this 26th January 1949. Now as I told, 26th January 1949, the drafting was complete, but 1949 November 26th. But we had to wait for 2 more months for implementing this Constitution. That is 1950 26th January. Now why this is important? Why this is important? Because the 1950 26th January, this is 26th January, the top one, which we celebrate as Republic Day. Okay, 26th January 1950. Now in India we do have a habit of waiting for the auspicious day for doing something good. Okay, now the same thing is reflected here also. We waited for 2 more months for commencement of constitution, whereas some provisions of the constitution came into force from November 26th itself. Now, as a second assignment, you can take that work, like what are those provisions in the constitution which came into force from 26th November 1949 itself. Okay, now try to get an idea of what are the provisions in the constitution which were already implemented in implemented from 26 November 1949. Now this is also important for your prelims, because sometimes in prelims you will get the questions like all provisions in the constitution came into force from 26 January 1950. Okay, that would be a wrong statement because the word all. Okay, the word all is there. Not all provisions came into force from 26 January. Most of the provisions came into force from 26 January. I hope this is clear. Any questions till now? Yeah, thanks. Now, what is a recent update about this one, 26 January? And there are a lot of politics, okay, around which happened during this time. Now, the other political parties, they criticize Congress for choosing 26 January as Republic Day. Now, why they is a criticism to Congress? Because they feel that the Congress wanted to choose 26 January deliberately to remind to the people that 26 January 1930 Purna Swaraj Day has been recognized. I hope you understand the connection between this. That means every year we celebrate Republic Day. Then every year we do remember the contribution of Congress to Indian freedom struggle. Now that is why the opposition political parties claim that 26 January was chosen not for a ground to celebrate the freedom struggle, because to celebrate the Congress party. I hope the politics which are surrounding the Republic Day are clear. Now, recently, the current government, which is often critically opposing to Nehru and Congress, so what it started doing is they started celebrating 26th November as Constitution Day. Okay, this has been done since 4-5 years back, I think. Okay, we are celebrating 26th November as Constitution Day, again to reduce the dependence on 26th January for our nationalistic fervor. I hope you understood the politics which are surrounding this one. Okay, but when you're writing in the exam, maybe in your prelims exam, maybe they can give you the factual questions like this one, like all the provisions of the constitution came into force from 26 January, or why 26 January is important, why this Republic Day is important. But do remember that there are a lot of controversies which are surrounding this, but we are not going into these controversies. But it took almost 3 years for drafting the constitution, and whatever the debates which happened were preserved in the National Archives of India in the form of Constituent Assembly debates. Now, why this is important? Because each and every provision in the constitution, okay, if they are kept a provision like maybe republic, what is the meaning of the republic as envisioned from the constitution makers? Now, each and every word in the constitution, there was a lot of debate, there were a lot of, you can say, discussions which happened for keeping that provision in the constitution or for not keeping that word in the constitution. Now, when there is any challenge in the interpretation of the constitution, the scholars are going to refer to the Constitution Assembly debates to understand on what is the basis or what was the purpose of adding that particular provision in the constitution. That is why they are preserved till date. Now, if someone is interested to know about the debates, I suggest there is a serial called Samvidhan, if you already know that. So I can share you the link, the Samvidhan serial. It's available on Rajya Sabha TV as well as YouTube. So if someone is interested, go through the Samvidhan serial. Okay, 1 hour each. Okay, might be boring. Okay, but within 1 day you will be able to complete that Samvidhan serial. You'll get an idea the making of the constitution, how the each and every single word in the constitution was added with some intention, okay, or not added with a reason. Okay, there was a lot of discussions which happened around each and every provision in the constitution. Then finally constitution was drafted on 26 November 1949. Now this constitution is not just a document, it is the, you can say, the living document which changes itself. Okay, the constitution which is drafted in 1950 is not the same the constitution we are having in 2020. because we made a lot of changes to the constitution, which we will discuss in the chapter called amendments. Okay, how we have changed, why we have changed, what is the implication of that, we will discuss. Here we also going to put some focus on the basic structure and the other issues. But before we get into that, I just wanted to show you some photographs of the transfer of power, the way it happened. Then you can see the making of constitution, some dates. So I hope you are able to see the slide, right, all of you, the making of the constitution slide. Yeah, thank you. So this is how the making of the constitution. So as I told, the Constituent Assembly had 389 members, 292 representatives of it is not called states in those times, it was called provinces, British provinces. So today we calling them as states. Okay, in those times there were 11 British provinces. These 11 today they have become like 28 plus 8, which we'll cover. Then there are 93 members nominated from princely states and 4 from the other provinces like commissioner administered provinces, where 4 were present. So in total we had 389 members in the constitution. Now when the constitution was drafted, it was different, and today it is different. Today we have 448 articles, but the constitution at that point of time did not have these many articles. A lot of new articles were added by constitution amendments, which we will discuss. What are the amendments which were added in the constitution? What is the importance of that? Okay, we will cover to that. Then some photographs just wanted to show you. So the very first resolution which was passed is to declare India as an independent, sovereign and republic. We will cover all this when we are talking about preamble. So just bear with me, and if you have any questions, do stop me. Okay, so you can see the members of the Constituent Assembly signing the final draft of the Constitution, and you see Nehru signing the final draft of the Constitution. Now this is the preamble as per the original Constitution. Maybe I'll just zoom this. Okay, the original Constitution had the preamble like this. Okay, and each and every page of the constitution was heavily decorated by the artists, okay, to show the art, the culture, okay, the heritage of India. Okay, so mainly from the murals of Ajanta or from other places, you can see the artists like Nandalal Bose, okay, the famous artists in those times. So they ensured that the constitution was heavily decorated, depicting the scenes from the Indian history, the scenes from national freedom struggle, to make the people aware or to make the people conscious about their past. Though the constitution was drafted for 3 years, there was some criticism for Indian constitution. Okay, there was some criticism for Indian constitution, which I am going to put it in your chat. What is the criticism for Indian constitution? Just let me see, where is the chat? Yeah, so I kept the criticism for Indian Constituent Assembly and the constitution which we drafted. So this criticism is applicable only for the Constituent Assembly. So the first criticism of this is Constituent Assembly is not representative. That is, not everyone participated in the election electing the members of Constituent Assembly. I said like 289 members are from British India, and the remaining members are nominated from princely states and commissioner administered provinces. So the first criticism is the Constituent Assembly, the CA, was not representative enough. Then the second criticism for the Constituent Assembly was it took too long. And it took too long, and that too for copying the work from 1935 Government of India Act and from other sources. I hope, as I was saying, like 60% of Indian Constitution was derived from 1935 Government of India Act. Now there is a criticism that if you are already copying it, why not copy it very quickly? Okay, so you are copying from American Constitution, copying something from Australia, something from South Africa. Now if you are not making anything new, then why it took too long? That is almost 3 years. This is a criticism. Second criticism. The third criticism for in Constituent Assembly was only the male Hindu lawyers from Indian National Congress have dominated it. Okay, the male Hindu lawyers from Indian National Congress dominated the Constituent Assembly. Now, you should be in a position to counter criticize this one. That is, what are the counter criticisms for it? I hope you understood the criticisms first. Okay. Now it took, yeah.
Yes, sir.
That is, it was not representative enough. Why it was not representative enough? Because people did not participate directly in the elections. Like, the way we elect the members of Rajya Sabha. People do not participate directly in the MP Rajya Sabha election. They participate in the MLA elections, and MLAs participate in the Rajya Sabha election, Rajya Sabha MPs election. That is, we elect MP Rajya Sabha indirectly, not direct election. And in those times, there was no universal adult franchise. There was no universal adult franchise. That is, not everyone participated in the elections. Just 1 minute. Okay, not everyone participated in the elections because at that point of time there was no universal adult franchise. That is, hardly 10% were given the voting rights. Now, after independence, we gave the universal adult franchise, but in those times, the way Constituent Assembly was elected, hardly 10% of the people participated, and that too indirect election. And some of the members are not even elected; they were nominated by the Rajas and Nawabs. Now, this is one criticism, that it was not representative. Now, what is the counter criticism for that? The counter criticism that it is not representative was, see, though the Constituent Assembly was not representative, they ensured that the Constituent Assembly ensured that the members from opposition political parties would also participate. For example, the member or the chairman of the drafting committee, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar himself, he was a staunch critic of Congress. He was a staunch critic of Gandhi and Nehru. I hope you know that. The reason is he believed that Congress is a upper caste led party. Okay, it was like a Brahmin Baniya party. Okay, I hope Ambedkar would not have used those words, but that was the intention. I hope who is a Brahmin here? Nehru, and the Baniya was Gandhi. Okay, so he called Congress as a upper caste led party because Ambedkar's philosophy would be revolving more and more about the caste system. He believed that Indian National Congress itself was not representative of the Indian society. It was only the elite members of Congress were there. Now, despite his criticism, Ambedkar was being called to head one of the most important committees of Constituent Assembly. Why is it like that? Because the members of Constituent Assembly, though they are from elite sections, no doubt they are from elite sections. So most of them are lawyers, and that too the lawyers who have studied abroad and came to India. Imagine by today's standard also, going abroad, studying law, come back to India, and most of them participated in freedom struggle without any careers. Now, even by today's standards, doing that is impossible for many people. I hope you know that. Now, that too in those times, they have left their lucrative careers and participated in the freedom struggle. That means we can say that though they are from elite sections, but they cared about all. No doubt Congress was led by only few, but Congress was led for all. Okay. Now later Congress would be led by all, after independence, and it would be led for all. That is a different story. We'll come back to that. Now, why it is, though it is not representative, the constitution makers were aware of that fact that it was not representative. That is why they made some provisions in the constitution itself to amend the constitution. Now, there is one important article in the constitution that is called Article 368. Article 368, which talks about constitutional amendment. Some articles you can make a note because these are very important. I suggest spend some time to understand this. We'll come back to all this, but for time being, do remember that though the constitution itself is not like a rock, we can actually change it. It's not like a mountain, it is like a river. Okay, if you do not like any provision in the constitution, you can amend it. So one important power the constitution makers have given to us to amend the constitution. Now, what happens if the constitution does not reflect the changing times? We will see that many nations or many constitutions would fail. Many constitutions would fail. Like if you see a lot of countries across the world, they have failed. Now, in 1950s, after World War II, I hope you know that there was World War II. Can anyone tell me the time frame of World War II from where to where it happened?
1945.
Very good, 1939 to 1945. Now, after World War II, the most important thing which happened in the world was decolonization. Decolonization. That means there were a lot of colonies, like within India and its neighborhood itself. You'll see a lot of countries were ruled by other European powers. Like take the case of India or Sri Lanka or Myanmar or Pakistan or Bangladesh, or if you see in our neighborhood itself, you'll see a lot of countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, all these countries were under different European rule. Now, after World War II, this was the golden period for all these colonies, because one after the other they became independent, not only in India and its neighborhood, but also in the whole of Asia, like Southeast Asia, as well as in Africa, as well as in Latin America. Across the world, there was decolonization. Now, these decolonized countries, we call them as newly independent countries. Most of these countries could not succeed like a democracy. Now, out of all these countries, at least 100 countries became independent within 10-20 years time period. Now, out of these 100 countries, only one country could survive as democracy. That country is India. Now, this is something very important to understand, because the challenges India has faced, no other country probably would have faced. Because we cannot compare India with Germany or France. We'll come back to this, why you cannot compare. But at the same time, the concept of democracy, which was alien to Indian society, was introduced by the Constitution. And the Constitution ensured that this democracy and the republican form of government and whatever the Constitution makers believed, it has tried to keep up those values. That is why the Constitution is a living document and it is changing with changing times. So it is not like a mountain which is very rigid. There are some provisions in the constitutions. If you do not, if you think that they are not in synchronism with the changing times, they have given the provision to change it. Though the Constituent Assembly was not representative, they ensured that if people do not like that, they can change it at any time. This power they have given. And moreover, the members of the Constituent Assembly were magnanimous enough to invite the members from opposition political parties. Now, this kind of, you can say, approach is something which is missing at a later date. But in those times, the leaders were aware, though they had differences in their ideology, but they valued the other's opinion as well. And this is something which we have to note, that though Constituent Assembly is not representative, they ensured that it was talking about all the sections of the society. That is something what we call it as counter criticism for that. I hope the first point is clear. The Constituent Assembly is not representative. This is a criticism. But I hope you understood the counter criticism also. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And then coming to the next one is, it took too long. So we are saying that the Constituent Assembly took too long. Like if someone knows something about the world history, the French Constitution was drafted in a tennis court. Okay, in fact, the Japanese constitution was made in a war room after the World War II when the Japanese forces surrendered to the Allied forces. So the American generals pointed the gun at the constitution makers. Again, I'm saying in a way you can understand. Okay, and they were forced to draft the constitution which would suit the interests of America, not that of Japan. That is, there was no deliberation. There was no deliberation in the Japanese constitution. Now, coming to the constitutions across the world, you should be glad that it took long time to deliberate upon each and every provision in the constitution. And one reason Indian constitution was surviving, because in India is surviving as democracy, one major reason is its constitution. Okay, it is because of our constitution we are surviving as a nation today. One of the most important reasons is because of the constitution of India. And in addition to that, we say that it is copied. Okay, it is Indian constitution is copied one from Government of India Act 1935. Now, to understand, it is a simple statement saying that Indian constitution makers copied 60% of the constitution from. No, it is a fact. Okay, it is a fact that they copied 1935 Government of India Act and made into constitution. But we have to also understand that to get into 1935 Government of India Act, it was not simple for Indians to reach that stage. It is not like the British came with some good intention of good governance. Okay, because East India Company or British need not go for elections. Okay, I hope you know that. Okay, they did not care anything about the peasants or farmers or any section of the society. All they cared is how to extract maximum amount of wealth and take it back to London. Okay, so the British never cared about the local population. Now, what they cared about is how much or how long we can exploit India and suppress the freedom struggle. Now, during these times, a lot of Indians came together and formed different groups which took part in the freedom struggle. Now, it forced the British to give us some rights. For example, if you see 1909 Indian Councils Act or Morley Minto reforms, this was a result of Swadeshi movement. And 1919 Government of India Act, also called Montagu-Chelmsford reforms, it was a result of the Home Rule League movement. I hope you know that there was Home Rule League movement, there was Rowlatt Satyagraha. Okay, maybe in your modern Indian history you'll read in detail about that, but we'll cover those acts. Okay, what is there in 1919 Government of India Act. In the same way, if you want to understand 1935 Government of India Act, okay, the way it has been there, it was as a result of non-cooperation movement. It was a result of civil disobedience movement, and it was also the result of the three roundtable conferences, then Pune Pact, then Simon Boycott, and Nehru Report. All this played a very important role in drafting of Government of India Act 1935. In fact, not only the Congress and mainstream leaders, but also the revolutionaries played a role in amending the constitution. Revolutionaries like Bhagat Singh, I hope you know that Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, they also played a important role what kind of India we wanted. Because when Bhagat Singh was making his intention, or when Chandrasekhar Azad is making their intention, or when the revolutionaries were making their intention, now what kind of India they are looking for, they made it very clear. They said India would be a sovereign country. India would be a republic country. India would be a socialist country. Now, all the things for which they have struggled for, they were incorporated in the agenda of the Congress and incorporated in the Constituent Assembly in the Constitution itself. I hope it's clear why. Okay, we copied from 1935 India Act, but 1935 Government of India Act itself is a result of almost 200 years of struggle, and a lot of Indians had to sacrifice their life to reach to the Government of India Act 1935. It is not a blessing given by the British on day one. To reach to Government of India Act 1935, we had to struggle a lot. Okay, so there is nothing wrong in taking directly from Government of India Act 1935. Because if you see constitutional evolution, that is why we see the constitutional evolution historical underpinnings. From 1773 Regulating Act, they tried to control the population like a dictatorship. So from 1930 till 1773 to 1935, you can see there was release of the control of the British. There was some transparency, some accountability which was starting by the British. Now this was missing in earlier acts. Okay, so that is why Government of India Act became the base for our constitution. Okay, That is why we borrowed from Government of India Act. And also I'm saying that we also borrowed from other countries. Other countries like we even borrowed from Japan, South Africa, Germany, Canada, US. Okay, a lot of countries across the world we borrowed the provisions. Now, isn't it wrong to copy from other constitutions? Okay, the thing is, the constitution or the political systems, it is not like a patented things. Like it's just like you invent something, you should not allow others to copy. Now, yeah, please.
So, South Africa got freedom after us. Their constitution was not yet made, but yet they say we copied from South Africa's
Yes,
constitution.
yes.
How
The
is
reason
that?
the reason is South Africa was already having a British constitution, just like we had Government of India Act 1935. South Africa had its own rules before that because South Africa was also under British rule. So yeah, we have derived
Okay.
from that. Yeah, yeah, we
Thank
have
you,
derived
sir.
from that. Now, in the same way, like Germany came into existence after 1992, after the disintegration of Soviet Union. Germany came into the Germany as we see today. But we have taken from Germany's constitution the emergency provisions. So the emergency provisions, if you know that, they are taken from Hitler's constitution. It's called Weimar Constitution. Okay, Weimar, Weimar, Weimar Constitution of Germany. Okay, so the countries today they may change, but the intentions with which we have copied it, or we have taken or borrowed from those constitutions was very clear. And as I told that it is not like a copyrighted material or a patented copy that you should not copy from one system or other because no country can claim originality. Because when we say republic form of government, we cannot say it is a Western invention because even in ancient India there were republics. Even in the time of Buddha and Mahavira, there were republics in India itself. You know, Buddha himself was born in a republic. You know, Mahajanapadas, heard of Mahajanapadas? So, which were there in 6th century BC in India. Okay, so they were republic form of government. In fact, the Chola administration, okay, which clearly talked about the democratic setup at the grassroots level. Now, this grassroots level democracy, what we talk today, again, it is not complete invention of the Western countries, though the names are Western, but these are some systems which were there in India also. So I hope it's clear that we cannot say that this country is original constitution, this country is copied constitution. Because if you take the oldest constitution in the world, the oldest surviving constitution today is American Constitution. Even American Constitution itself was inspired from the French political thoughts or the systems of British government it was inspired. In fact, when Indians were making the constitution, they had lot of constitutions to look for. Like we made constitution in 1945, 1946, 1949. Now by this time, lot of countries' constitutions were there. But when Americans were making the constitution in 1770s, okay, imagine in 1770s, they had nothing to refer. Okay, now how they would have made those constitution? Because they made their constitution borrowing from different countries. Even the oldest constitution, they have made from borrowing the political systems from different countries. There is nothing wrong and nothing original. So what we have to remember is, when we have borrowed the constitution, we should be glad enough that they did not shy away from emulating the best practices in other countries. There is nothing wrong in that, and it should be, they are very with an open mindset. Our constitution makers drafted the constitution and they did not shy away from taking from the other countries. Okay, so that is one reason why Indian constitution is so strong, because we had the best practices from different countries. In fact, that is a counter criticism for that. Okay, it took too long to copy that work. It is a criticism, and the counter criticism is this one. I hope you understood the counter criticism well. Any questions? Or anything you wanted to add, anything you wanted to discuss? Okay. Now, the third criticism is the male Hindu lawyers from Congress dominated it. There is no doubt that majority of the members were male. Majority of the members were from Hindu community. Majority of those members were lawyers, and majority of the members were from Indian National Congress. Again, I kept all the criticism in one heading. Now, how to counter criticize this one? How to put the counter arguments? make a list of the female members in Constituent Assembly. You can take this as another third assignment for you. Okay, take this as third assignment. Make a list of all female members of Constituent Assembly. Okay, the contribution of women in Constituent Assembly. Make a list of those non-Hindu leaders in Constituent Assembly. Non-Hindus in Constituent Assembly. Make a list of those who belong to other professions apart from lawyers in Constituent Assembly, and make a list of those members who are other than Indian National Congress, who belong to other political party. Now, if you make this list, you'll be having a huge amount of counter criticism ready with you. Now, even in the mains, if you get a criticism like this, you should focus more on the counter criticism. I hope you understood what is criticism for Constituent Assembly, and you'll be in a position to write these ones. But this exercise, this brainstorming, you have to do as a part of your assignments. Okay, I hope the assignments are clear till now. 3. Okay, so first assignment is about 1773 to 1947 Indian Independence Act. You are going to list out all, and just beside that, the 4 important things, provisions you are going to list. Now, this should be like a working document. Once you make this document, you take a printout of that and stick it in your room. Or if you're writing it, write it in a big chart, maybe a A3 chart or a bigger chart, and stick it in your study room, so that every day you'll be reading that, because this could be a bit confusing if you are reading for the first time. So I suggest stick it in your room and have a glance at that every day, so that you'll be in a position to recollect. Now, whatever book you are reading, it's completely fine for history or this one, but Lakshmikant also gives you a basic idea. Okay, what are the events which happened? Okay, any questions till now? Okay, I'll take it as a no. Okay, moving on to the next topic. So we will follow the same pattern as that of Lakshmikant pattern. Okay, so that you'll be very clear about the topics. So while the constitution was being drafted, okay, India had many challenges to tackle, many challenges before itself. One of the major challenges India had was it had undergone 200 years of exploitation, 200 years of colonial rule. This had completely destroyed the social, economic and political fabric of the country. Okay, the social fabric of the country was destroyed because there was cultural imperialism, because many people believed that the British rule was better. Okay, one of the concerns for Indian National Congress was to prove that the British rule was not good to Indians. Okay, if you see 1857 revolt, why 1857 revolt was not successful? Because many Indians did not support in 1857 revolt, because they felt that the British rule was not dangerous for India, because the British ruled in a way where people did not know that they are being exploited, but they were being exploited. Okay, now just to give an example, like there are 2 ways to extract your taxes. There are 2 ways to extract your, you can say, if the government wanted to take your savings, there are 2 ways. One way, it can send army, it can send police to come to your home, okay, take whatever they can and go back. This is one way. The other way is it can increase the repo rate. Okay, it can, sitting in Delhi, the RBI increases the repo rate. You do not even know that what is happening to your savings. Okay, the complete your savings would get evaporated. Now the British adopted the other way, the more diplomatic way, that Indians were not even aware that they are being exploited. So one of the major challenges for the freedom fighters was to convince the people that British rule was not good for Indians. Okay, that is why when we see Indian National Congress was established, the idea of nationalism was to be the idea of nationalism has to be percolated down, and that is where the role of Dadabhai Naoroji, okay, the poverty and un-British rule in India, drain of wealth theory, all these theories they have given to make the Indians aware of the exploitation. Okay, hope it's clear. Now, if it is clear, we'll come to the next topic. No,
Sir, are
not
you
yet.
changing the slides?
Not yet. Yeah, I'll change this, right. So when India was born in 1947, it had multiple challenges. It was like a baby in the ICU. Okay, a small baby which is born, a newborn baby in the ICU. I hope you know that a newborn baby requires more support, more ventilation. Okay, so and I hope you will not write these words in the exam. So just for your understanding, when India became independent, it was having multiple challenges. You can make a note of the challenges. Yes. The first challenge, the first challenge is partition. Okay, in addition to the colonial rule, we were discussing that 200 years of exploitation, almost all countries would experience the same things. Now, almost more than 100 countries which became independent had the same challenges India had. But in addition to that, India had three unique challenges it has to come up with. The first one is partition. Partition, as I know, as I was saying that there were 11 provinces in British India, like Assam, Bengal, UP, CP, Bihar, Odisha, Madras, Bombay, Punjab, Sindh, and NWFP. Now, of all these provinces, three are Muslim majority provinces. Three are Muslim majority provinces, and the remaining eight are Hindu majority provinces. Now, there was a demand for creation of a new country, the new nation that is Pakistan. Now, this Pakistan was created on the basis of religious lines. So, partition had happened on religious lines. Though India claimed that we are a secular country, it was perceived to be a Hindu country. Okay, just like Pakistan is perceived to be an Islamic country and it became Islamic country. But whereas India maintained from its beginning that we are going to become a secular country, and India more or less tried to remain as a secular country till now. But the idea of partition in which we were born, the idea of partition challenged the very concept of secularism. Okay, this was having a huge impact on our secular credentials. So India had to struggle hard to prove to the world and to India itself that we are a secular country. Okay, and this challenge or this struggle did not come. I mean, it came with a huge cost to us. Okay, and partition. We will discuss about partition, what the impact of partition, which it had. Okay, we'll come back to this. Now, the second challenge India had was reorganization of states. Sorry, integration of princely states. The second challenge India had was integration of princely states. So as I told, like there were more than 500 princely states. Now we'll come back to the princely states, what exactly happened. Okay. Now for time being, to remember that there was challenges of princely states, how to integrate them into the idea of India. Then the third challenge India had to overcome was on what basis internal reorganization has to be done. On what basis internal reorganization has to be done. I hope we were discussing that India in 1946 had 11 provinces, 3 Muslim majority, 8 Hindu majority. Now, on what basis they were formed? Simply put, they were formed only for the administrative convenience. But after independence, the welfare of the people became more important. Now, on what basis should we form the states? Can language be the criteria? Can language be the criteria for formation of states? This is what we call it as internal reorganization of the states. In addition to a lot of external challenges and the obvious challenges which country had to face because of 200 years of exploitation. In addition to that, these are the unique challenges India had to face. Okay, I hope you remember the three things: partition, princely states, and reorganization of states, and what basis they have to be reorganized. If this is clear, we will go to the next or first topic, partition. Any questions? Please do let me
Yes,
Yes.
know
sir.
or stop me. Feel free. Okay. Now, when the partition, okay, just let me share. Yeah, the partition came to India with a huge cost. Now, what exactly was the problem was they are trying to divide a subcontinent, and I hope you know that India is called subcontinent of its because of its sheer size, population, and the diversity which it has. Just for the sake of comparison, just to tell you how large India is and what are the challenges India has. Now, can anyone tell me what is the area of Bangalore? Just for the sake of comparison, what is the area of Bangalore approximately? Okay, what is the area of India? Okay, approximate. Come on. Yeah,
3.287 million
3.28
square kilometers.
million square kilometers. It's in square kilometers.
7.
Okay, 32 lakh square kilometers. Okay, 32, 33 lakh square kilometers. Okay, now this is the area of India. Now, just for the sake of comparison, can anyone tell me what is the area of Karnataka? Approximately how much do you think Karnataka would be of? Very good.
191.
Okay, we'll keep it like
791
2
square
lakhs,
kilometers.
approximately 2 lakh square kilometers. Now, just for the sake of comparison, can anyone give me the area of UK? You can Google it and tell me. Area of UK, 6 lakh square
6
kilometers.
lakh square kilometers.
Okay. Now, maybe if I ask you the area of Switzerland or France, maybe Switzerland, 4 lakhs, 4
4
lakh square
lakhs,
kilometers
sir.
or 40,000? 40,000, got it?
Sorry,
Now,
40,000.
got
Not
an
4 lakhs.
understanding? Now, I am not comparing with India, I am comparing with Karnataka itself. And Switzerland, a lot of countries in Europe are very small compared to a medium-sized Indian state. Again, Karnataka is not the largest. I hope you know that. Okay, I am not comparing the population. Okay, if I compare the population, only Bangalore itself would be able to deal with Switzerland. Okay, I am not comparing the population. I am only comparing the area. If I compare the population, maybe UP itself, UP or Bihar itself might be able to deal with the whole of Europe. Okay, so here what I am doing is I'm just trying to compare. And UK is one of the largest countries in Europe, one of the largest countries in Europe after I think third or fourth after Russia and Ukraine. Okay, just check that. But just to give you an example, like when I say that the European countries are small, they are very small. So next time when your friend says, I went to Europe, I traveled to 20 countries. Okay, don't get too much impressed because he might be traveling from Bangalore to Belgaum at hardly. Okay, that is hardly, this is the size of the European countries. They are very small countries and nowhere comparable to the size of India. Also, if you see population, if you see population, no doubt, okay, we had huge amounts of population in India. Now, India with such a large population, such a area, and most importantly, the challenge India had, or this one unique feature India has, it is diversity. It is diversity. In almost all parameters, we are different. But if you see the European countries, in almost all parameters, they are similar. But in India, we do have huge diversity, which no other country would be having this much of diversity. And perhaps the only country which has this much of diversity is US. Yes, and that too US is born after the 18th century. Okay, now India was having this diversity since ancient and medieval times. Now, different people from different faiths, different languages, different philosophies, different ideologies, different ethnic groups, they started living together in India since ancient times. Okay, I hope you got this idea, the way India is size, both by area, by population, by diversity. We cannot be compared to any other country in the world. Now, when you are dividing the country, okay, this division was not made on any logical grounds. It was made based on the demands for partition by Muslim League and Jinnah. Now, when India was divided, there was naturally a huge amount of refugees had to move from here to here. Now, what exactly? Now, see, there are different reasons why the partition happened. Now, some people, so the Indian historians blame Pakistan for all the wrongs, all the partition. That means if you see any nationalist textbook like Bipin Chandra or Sumit Sarkar, they always point out that it was because of Muslim League we had partition. Now, if you see the writings of Islamist writers or the Pakistani historians, they blame Congress for the religious politics for partition. Now, when the Marxist historians write history, then they blame British for the partition, the divide and rule policy and divide and quit policy of British. Now, who is responsible for partition? Now, it is a debate only historians can answer. But as a student preparing for your exam, we should know how much Muslim League is responsible, how much Congress is responsible, how much British is responsible. So when you are preparing, write down the points by which we can say that Muslim League is responsible. When you are writing the answers, it should be balanced. You should not only blame Muslim League, okay, as like nationalist historians, or you cannot only blame British for everything wrong in your country as well. So when you are writing the answers, write down with examples. What happened which led to partition? Maybe from my opinion, there are three important years. There are three important years, which I call it as fault lines. You know fault line? Whenever there is an earthquake, there would be fault lines. Okay, so this would finally lead to the earthquake that is called partition. So the three important years, if I have to pick in our modern Indian history, that would be 1928, 1937 and 1946. Can anyone tell me what happened in 1928? If you have studied your history or if you know something. An important event which led to partition. Okay, 1928 was the time when Simon Commission came into India. Now Indians boycotted the Simon Commission, said that there was no Indian member in the Simon Commission, so the protests started. So in response, the British government has gave a challenge, saying that Indians can never be coming together. That is, we cannot make a constitution which is satisfying all the people in India. Because, for example, within India itself, there are Hindus and Muslims, okay, and other religious groups as well. Okay, there are a lot of religious groups which are there in India. Now, which is acceptable to Indian National Congress was not acceptable to Muslim League. Now, we make any constitution, it would not be acceptable to all the sections of the society. The reason is, in India, there is always someone to oppose. Now, you can see even today, if you bring any policy, okay, there is always a group which is not satisfied with that policy, always. So what British claimed is, we cannot make any constitution which is acceptable to all Indians, and said that you can try making a constitution if you accept the challenge. It said that because Ambedkar was asking for, because Muslim League was asking for a separate country, okay, Ambedkar was asking for separate states, okay, or if not separate country, Dalitistan, okay, and we can see there are tribals, we can see there are Hindu and Muslim, we can see there are left wing and right wing. Okay, so within India, within the Congress itself, there are different shades. So what kind of India we wanted? So in 1928, the challenge was accepted. So this Simon Commission report was taken as a challenge, and Indians started making the constitution on their own. Can anyone tell me what is that called? That's called Nehru Report. Nehru Report, very good. It's called Nehru Report, Motilal Nehru, not Jawaharlal Nehru, Motilal Nehru Report. Now, this Nehru Report, as the way British expected, that this created divisions within the Congress and outside the Congress. And Jinnah was the first one to vehemently oppose the Nehru Report. He said that this is making the provisions called, it is basically on the separate electorates. Maybe in your modern Indian history, you'll learn 1928 separate electorates. Now, in response to Nehru Report, Jinnah drafted his own demands, that is called 14-point demand. Now, this is one important event which triggered, you can say, communalization. Okay, communalism. Now from here the seeds of communalism would be sown. Now in 1937 there were elections where Muslim League and Indian National Congress would come to an agreement, pre-poll agreement. Now after the elections, Indian National Congress realizes that Muslim League would be nowhere. That is, as I told, that there were 11 British provinces, 8 Hindu and 3 Muslim majority. Now out of this Muslim majority, even in any of these Muslim majority regions, Muslim League could not win even in Muslim majority regions. Even in Muslim majority regions, some local parties could win. In fact, Congress was able to form the government in Northwestern Frontier Province. So Congress believed that Muslim League is nowhere in the game, so it would not honor the pre-poll agreement. It would say that Muslim League has to merge with Congress, then only we are going to give you the ministryship. Okay. Now this is something which created more trouble, and Muslim League from here it started distancing itself, and lot of Muslims within the Congress also started coming out and joining the Muslim League. Now this is the event which happened in 1937. Okay, that is the elections, and in any case 1939 Congress would resign. That is a different story, but even for this time there was a lot of conflict between Muslim League and Indian National Congress, which would further lead to the next phase of communalism in India. And finally in 1946 there was a breakdown of cabinet mission plan, which was the last hope of keeping the country together. And here also the talks, the Shimla conference and the final pacts like the CR formula or Desai Liaquat Pact, all this failed, and finally leading to the direct action day called by Jinnah and Muslim League. So these are the three important events. All these fault lines would turn into the earthquake called partition in 1947. Okay, I hope this background is clear. Any questions or anything you wanted me to discuss?
Sir, I have a doubt
Please
here.
go ahead.
Yeah, so when Muslim League already decided that they want a separate nation for Muslims, so why didn't India at that time, instead of being secular, they too demanded for a Hindu nation or any other nation which doesn't include Muslims, because other like Bodh, Jain,
Yeah,
they will be considered in
yeah.
India.
See,
But
India never
why not
claimed that we are going
Muslims?
to be a Hindu country, but it is the Indian National Congress. So as I told that it is not only Muslim League which is entirely responsible to Pakistan. It is equally the historians, when neutral historians write, they equally blame Indian National Congress for its policies also. For example, on one side, Indian National Congress said that we are going to be secular country. Okay, but at the same time, it was giving dual membership to Hindu Mahasabha. The members of Hindu Mahasabha were also part of Indian National Congress. When Muslim League also said we would be like Hindu Mahasabha, okay, we would be taking part in Indian National Congress also, then Indian National Congress said it is not possible. For Hindu Mahasabha it accepted, but for Muslim League it did not accept. Now is it clear? Now is it this is something like which historians debate, that Congress itself was having this attitude. In fact, if you know what is the symbol of Congress, can anyone tell me what is the symbol of Congress? Notice BJP, come on.
Lotus.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry,
So
Sir, Abaya has
yeah. Not Abayas or Rahul Gandhi. Okay. So actually, the earlier symbol of Congress was two cows. Okay, which was a symbol of Hinduism. If you know that the earlier symbol of Congress during independence, it was two cows. Okay, now the cow politics, or you can say the communal politics, were not started by the other political parties. In fact, many leaders, many historians would blame Congress for religious politics. In fact, there were a lot of right-wing members in Congress also. Okay, there were left-wing and right-wing both in Congress itself. For example, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was a congressman. He was a strong right-wing leader. Okay, we'll cover what is right-wing, what is left-wing. So, in fact, the Congress itself did not distance itself from the religious elements within the Congress. There were religious elements within the Congress. Like in the morning, they will say Bharat Mata Ki Jai, but in the evening, they'll say the Ram Janmabhoomi or something, the issues like Jai Shri Ram. So the Congress secular credentials were questioned, and Congress did not make any attempt to prove that we are a secular country. Okay, so this is something why the historians claim that Congress is also equally responsible for partition. Okay, that is how the historians debate. When they debate with the facts. So they come with the facts where Muslim League demand, where Congress demanded, or Congress is responsible, and where British is also responsible. And no doubt, all the three are responsible. But as a student preparing for competitive examination, our purpose is not into going into the details. Okay, our purpose is to write 200 words on partition. That's it. Okay, so do not go into the debates of partition and this one. So you should not get emotional. You should only write the points: how much Congress is responsible, how much Congress is not responsible.
The
Right?
facts.
So can we write Gandhi was the secular thread which held
Yeah, you can
all
write,
of them
but
together?
I suggest.
Actually, because he was the only man
Yeah,
who was
see,
actually
the
practiced
idea of secularism
secularism.
itself is something ironical, because Gandhi in his personal life was a very religious man. Okay, Gandhi in his own personal life is a very religious man, because when he was shot, he died with the words "Hey Ram" on his lip. Okay, he did not die with the words Bharat Mata Ki Jai. Okay, I hope you got it. That means he himself was a very religious person, but he fought for a secular country. Whereas Jinnah, in his personal life, he was a very secular man, but he fought for a religious country. Now, this is the irony of history. You'll see a lot of contradictions like this. Okay, so when you're writing when you're writing the answers, so be cautious
Okay.
that you are not bringing any controversial issues in your answers. So you should be writing in a very diplomatic way, and most importantly, do not bring individuals into the answers until it is asked. Okay, until it is asked about Gandhi or Jinnah or Nehru, do not bring the individuals. Always speak about the institutions or their ideas. Maybe you can talk about left-wing ideology, left, right-wing ideology. Again, do not name any particular party or any particular person. So this is like a unwritten rule in the exam, because I hope you know that saying that the common people would talk about the people. The common people would talk about the personalities. The mediocre people would talk about the events, and intellectual people would talk about ideas or ideology. So you should at least show that you are an intellectual. You should be talking more on the ideology of two nation, the ideology of maybe right wing, ideology of left wing. So I suggest do not bring up the issues like individual secularism. So until it is asked. So if it is asked, definitely you have to write in detail. But for the sake of this one, it's not required. That's what I suggest. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
Understood,
Good
sir.
point. Good
Thank
question.
Thank you.
So any other questions till the discussion we had?
Sir,
See,
1946,
again, in modern Indian
I
history,
don't
you'll
know
read
what
in
to
detail,
note down.
but I'll just give you the gist of what happened in 1946. 1946, there was a plan, that is what we call it as Cabinet Mission Plan. Okay, the Cabinet Mission Plan was like a last hope to save India from partition. Now, what this particular plan, it said that let us divide. Okay, so just before that, what 1946, there was a cabinet mission plan. They said that let us make the constitution, which is common for everyone. So they said that we are going to make a constitution in, okay, let me put it this way. They wanted to divide the country into three groupings. So as I told that India had 11 provinces, one province here Muslim majority, three provinces here which are Muslim majority. So Bengal, then we have the Sindh and NWFP and Punjab. So there were Muslim majority provinces and Hindu majority provinces. So what it said is we will divide the country into three provinces. That is category A. Okay, the category A would be having the Hindu majority provinces. like all other remaining Hindu majority provinces, it would be part of this one. And category B would be having these three provinces like Punjab, Sindh, and this is category B, Punjab, Sindh, and NWFP. And category A would be having Bengal and Assam. This is A. And the remaining provinces, so we got 5. The remaining 6 provinces would be called, sorry, category A. This is category A. This is Muslim majority provinces in northwest and Hindu majority provinces, sorry, Muslim majority provinces in east. Okay, now this is the classification cabinet mission plan proposed. Now what it proposed is, in India there would not be one constitution, there would be 3 constitutions. Now B would make one constitution, A would make one constitution, and C would make its own constitution. That is, in a country there would be 3 constitutions. Now all the 3 A, B, C would sit together and they make a common constitution, or that is what we call it as federal constitution. The federal constitution. And federal constitution would be talking about how to deal with the country in matters like defense or external relations. Defense or external relations or currency. Now this is how America is. Now if you see America in US, each state has its own constitution, but they are loosely tied together with a common bond, that is a federal government. Now we'll discuss in detail about the US and US federalism, but the cabinet mission plan proposed something like USA, where India would be having the groupings, A, B, C groupings. Now this is the concept called cabinet mission plan. Now in this cabinet mission plan, Indian National Congress and Muslim League, they made their own interpretations of cabinet mission plan. Whether this grouping is voluntarily, whether this grouping is mandatory. Now this was a question which the British did not come forward to answer. When it did not come forward to answer, both Muslim League and Congress made their own interpretations of this, and finally when British held that this grouping is mandatory, then both Indian National Congress and Muslim League rejected this cabinet mission plan. Now in response to this, Jinnah would call a particular day as called Direct Action Day. Now during this Direct Action Day, what would happen is, the cadres of Muslim League along with the local Muslim population, they have started the atrocities on lot of other religious minorities. Now this Direct Action Day is a consequence of this, and this Direct Action Day, in fact, this would lead to Hindu-Muslim riots. And in fact, after this 1946 Direct Action Day and the Hindu-Muslim conflicts, so everyone, including the Congress or Muslim League and British, all the 3 would agree that there is no solution for this problem. The only solution is 2 nation, that is partition. So this is like the final fault line which happened in India. 1928, Jinnah 14-point plan. Then 1937 elections. So 1928, historians blame Jinnah, okay, for not agreeing with Congress. 1937, historians would blame Congress for not agreeing with or not honoring the Muslim League commitment. And 1946, they again blame British for creating a conflict in the cabinet mission plan. So again, as I told, all the 3 are responsible, but these are the years which would lead finally to 1947 partition. Hope it's clear. Okay, so I took some time to explain. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So one doubt, sir. So the Direct Action Day, even the Muslim League observed it, and they had decided for an interim government. So then, how can Indian National Congress and Muslim
this
League
was
have
a
riots
prerogative
then?
of. Can someone keep it on mute? Keep your microphone on mute if you're not planning to speak. Okay, there is an echo. I can see. Yeah. So this Direct Action Day, so Jinnah and League both objected the central government. Now, in fact, Congress was very democratic in its approach, whereas Muslim League was not democratic in its approach. You can see, if you see history of Congress from 1885, every year there was a new president of Congress elected in a very democratic manner. In fact, Congress used to be a very democratic party until the time of Indira Gandhi. Okay, even after independence, Congress used to have own president. Every year the president used to change. In fact, Congress was the only party which could claim that it was a representative of India. Whereas Muslim League, which started from 1906, which started as an elite party, but over time what happened was Jinnah started becoming the member of Congress. Sorry, Muslim League. Once Jinnah was a member of Muslim League, the whole Muslim League came under his authority. That is, Muslim League itself became authoritarian. Okay, now whatever Jinnah says would be the demand of the Muslim League. Now, even today, you can see many political parties are like one-man control or one-woman control. Okay, you would observe that Congress itself. Okay, if you say Congress itself, the High Command, okay, would be controlling all the actions of Congress. So this democratic approach was there in Congress, but the same democratic approach was not there in this one. Now, Jinnah was using the bargaining chip. Okay, this Pakistan, the concept of Pakistan. In fact, what Jinnah felt, he wrote later in his diaries. Maybe Jinnah really felt that or not, that's a different story. But he wrote that I was expecting this to be used as a bargaining chip for getting more rights for my people. Just like Ambedkar. Ambedkar also used the concept, you know, that Dalitistan. He started asking for a separate country for Dalitistan. But later, this he used as a bargaining chip to get more rights for his section of people. Now, what Ambedkar fought for, he got it through constitutional means. Now, what Jinnah fought for, he thought he will get through constitutional means, but ironically, this would lead to a further major challenge, that is communalism. That is, you can say it is like playing with fire. So, at one point of time, even it became completely out of control out of Jinnah also. So, on 16th August, there was no other option for Jinnah and Muslim League but to reject the cabinet mission plan and said that with the British or with the Congress, as long as Congress would be there, we would be treated as second grade citizens. So he started this, the Direct Action Day. And during this Direct Action Day, what happened was a lot of Hindu-Muslim conflicts happened. Okay, they started throwing stones and killing each other, and the events became completely out of control. So leaders from all political parties now felt that we cannot be together. The only reason, the only thing which can save the country today, or which can save the country, was partition. So they had to come to that agreement. Okay, did I answer your question? Okay. Yeah, any other questions on partition?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, any other questions? See, this partition can happen in two ways. Okay, one is the Indian way, one is the European way. Now, Europeans are smart enough. See, whether it is father-son conflict, or husband and wife conflict, or brother and brother conflict. Now, in European way, there is something different. In Indian way, it is something different. Now, the partition which happened between Britain and India is the European way of partition. The partition which would happen between India and Pakistan, it is the Indian way of partition. I hope you know the European way and Indian way. Okay, so in the case of European way, they are very logical, they are very practical, they are smart enough. They'll come to an agreement. Maybe it is husband and wife, or father or son. Okay, on one fine day, the wife will say that I will not be there. I do not want to live with you. Husband will say that even I am thinking the same. They will shake their hands. They will vote. Okay, now this is the European way of partition. Now the partition which happened between India and Britain is a European way of partition. Now the partition which happened between India and Pakistan, it is the Indian way, where the events turned ugly. You'll see the husband-wife conflicts. Okay, maybe in the Indian style, it would be a ugly conflict most of the times. So this is like a Indian way of conflict or partition. Now this is a European way of conflict. In fact, the irony is, for 200 years, India and Pakistan both worked together and both fought against British. Okay, till 1947, India and Pakistan were together, fought against the British. But just after 1947, what happened? It is a miracle that India and Britain became close. Pakistan and Britain became close, but India and Pakistan started fighting with each other. I hope you understood the controversy or contradiction till 1947. Now, what is that event which happened, which made two countries which were just like brothers? Okay, now they became enemies. Now, what exactly happened in 1947? To understand that, we have to understand partition. I hope you got the essence of the story. I'm not giving you the details, but I just give you the gist, what exactly happened as the outcome. Okay, again, I hope you will not write all this in the exam, just for your understanding. I gave you the example here. Now, when India and uh, uh, Pakistan has to be divided, now in which way they have to be divided? Now, Jinnah said they have to be divided like this one, and this particular portion should belong to Pakistan. Now, when Jinnah proposed this plan initially, so everyone in the room were laughing, like saying that how can you have country, some here and some here, separated by some other country in between? This is next to impossible. But irony is, within 10 years, this became possible. Now you'll see a lot of contradictions which happened in history. Okay, just like this one. Now, and in fact, Jinnah was asking the Pakistan almost till Lucknow in Uttar Pradesh, a country of Pakistan that is almost till Lucknow in Uttar Pradesh and almost till Calcutta in West Bengal. Now, when Congress decided that there is no other option but partition, what it can do is to reduce the size of Pakistan as much as smaller as it can be. Now, when Jinnah had finally got this Pakistan, he said that I got a mutilated Pakistan. Now, this is not what I was expecting. Okay, only some portions of here and there you were given and asked me to govern. Now, this is something which Jinnah also was not very happy with when he got the final Pakistan. I hope it's clear. Now, this country later in 1971, it will fight a war with this was called East Pakistan. This was called West Pakistan. This was called East Pakistan. And in 1971, after a war, Bangladesh became independent. Okay, there was a battle between the East Pakistan and West Pakistan. Finally, Indian troops supported Bangladesh, and after India's intervention, so Bangladesh became independent. So India calls it as liberation, and Pakistan calls it as invasion. I hope the way you treat it, okay, the way you look at it. Now, from here, as I told that one of the major conflicts between India and Pakistan is border issues. That is, till where it is India, till where it is Pakistan. Now, to divide upon this border, a commission has been formulated. That is what we call it as Radcliffe Commission. Radcliffe Commission. Now, one of the, you can say, criticisms for the Radcliffe Commission was within no time, within I think hardly 15 days it has worked, and that too with outdated maps and obsolete data. The country was divided, and that too not a country, a subcontinent was divided. Now, the way Radcliffe Commission has functioned, there is a lot of criticism was there. In fact, Radcliffe himself, he said that I am not happy with my work. I am not going to take any remuneration for my work because I know that I have not done a good job. Now, when this Radcliffe line was drawn, as I told that Radcliffe draw these lines just taking some outdated maps with obsolete data. He never went into the field. He was sitting in his Mumbai office and drawn this map. What he did not realize is he was dividing a subcontinent, and some places these lines are passing through deserts, are passing through plains, are passing through glaciers, and passing through Himalayas. And most of the times these borders are not very clear, and it is because these borders are not very clear. One of the conflicts between India and Pakistan is the border disputes. Till today, one major challenge between India and Pakistan is border disputes, like till where Kashmir is yours, till where Kashmir is ours, till where Punjab is yours, till where Punjab is ours. I hope you got the idea of this. Any questions till now? Okay, thank you. Now, whether partition can be avoided or not, that is a different story. Okay, that's a different story. We will not go into that. But what could have been avoided by a simple, you can say, maturity levels of the political leaders is the bloodshed. The bloodshed which happened during partition. Now, the bloodshed which happened during partition was something never happened in history. It is an unprecedented. Now, there are people who are living across the border, and when 1947, when India got independence, along with independence, we also had the challenge of partition. Now, this called for the complete administrative machinery was moved back. Now, Lord Mountbatten made his intention very clear that when the last British citizen would board the ship, okay, then I will leave India. And he ensured that nothing would happen to the British citizens. Now, in fact, he was very successful in that. Okay, he should be appreciated that at least for his country, he has done a very good job. He ensured that despite 200 years of exploitation, despite all these challenges, now, even during this time, Indians were fighting among themselves, but Indians were not fighting with the British. Now, this is the irony. In fact, as I told, 1947 was a turn of events where enemies would change and friends would change. Okay. Now, what would happen here is there was mass migrations of people. At least 1.5 crores of people were displaced. At least 1.5 crores. What is the population of India today? Maybe around 130 crores. 130 crores. Okay, 130 crores. Yeah. So the population during independence was something like 30 crores, 30 to 40 crores. Now, out of 30 crores, 1.5 crore people. Now, you also know that this is a very highly fertile lands, the Gangetic Basin, and this is the Bengal region. This is the Punjab region, and all are very fertile lands. And traditionally, human settlements are there here. You know, Indus Valley civilization. You know about Mauryas. Okay, so if you see all this, the civilizations have flourished during these places, and these are inhabited not recently but for centuries, if not millennia together. Now, this population which has been settled over this one, when you are creating that, you are Indian, you are Pakistan, it is going to create the challenges. Okay, because these settlements did not happen overnight, they were there for millennia together. Now, these borders are not naturally formed borders. For example, India-Sri Lanka border is a naturally formed border thanks to Indian Ocean. Okay, and India-China border is a naturally formed border because of Himalayas. So unlike other countries' borders, India-Pakistan's borders were naturally formed borders, not naturally formed borders. They were man-made borders. So there would be a lot of people living here, lot of people living here. Now, how to divide them? Okay, so this led to huge amount of bloodshed, and as I told that if our leaders both on Indian side and Pakistan side has made some restraint, I'm not saying partition should not happen or should not have happened. Even if it is inevitable, it would have been done in a more civilized manner. But what is something which was missing is the complete bloodshed can happen. And as per the official figures, at least 15 million, that is 1.5 crore people were displaced, and at least 10 lakh people were killed. Now, this is something you can say a blot on India. On one side, we are seeing that India would be a secular country. On the other side, there were communal riots. On the other side, there was partition. There was a lot of bloodshed. I hope you understood the challenges India had to undergo. Now, this is not only the challenges which the people had to face, even the government had to face the challenges. In fact, those people who died were lucky. In fact, many people lost their families. Okay, many people lost their homes and everything, and whatever they could have, they started moving. And everything was going on with rumors because there was no official missionary, there was no British missionary till that point of time. Let us take maybe till today, we are saying that you will be ruled by police, you will be ruled by army. From tomorrow, there is no army, no police. Imagine the chaos which would be there. Okay, now this this was a complete unprecedented situation which was happening in India. This not only created the problems of killing of the people, but it created economic problems. Economic problems, for example, if you see here, many of the jute growing areas are in Bangladesh, whereas the jute industries are located in Indian part of Bengal, Indian portion of Bengal. Now, what would industries would do without having jute, or what would the jute manufacturer would do without sending it to industries? Okay, so here also economy suffered, here also economy suffered. In the same way here, if you see the regions, this is a highly paddy growing region as well as the sugar growing region, whereas many of the rice mills and sugar factories are located on the Indian side of the border. Now, what you will do with the factories without having any sugarcane, and what will you do with only sugarcane without the factories? You have to only make juice and drink. Okay, now because of all these challenges, the economy suffered, the politics suffered, and most importantly, the society, the common people, the ordinary man also had to suffer. Now, in all three spheres, partition created a huge challenge for newly independent India. Apart from sheer numbers of refugees flooding the India, like the people in Delhi, they witnessed that people from other areas, like this side or this side, they started coming into Delhi and living in the places, the makeshift places, something like this. Okay, now this created a huge resource crunch on India. Okay, I hope you understood the first challenge of partition. Any questions till now? Or are we good till here? Any other things you wanted to add?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, if everything is clear, we'll call it a day. Then I think the next class we will discuss about reorganization of states. Okay, the way the states were reorganized, and we'll come to the third challenge, that is integration of princely states. Now, before coming to the class, so I suggest you pay some attention or reread from your any of the source how India started its journey from 1947 and on what basis the states are created. Now 2020, this is a map of India. Now every 10 years, every 15 years, you can see the change in map of India. You have to know in which way the Maharashtra was created, in which way the Andhra Pradesh was created, in which way the Karnataka was created. So try to make a list of developments which happened between 1956 to 2019 until the creating the Union Territory of Ladakh and UT of Jammu Kashmir and merger of Daman, Diu and Dadra and Nagar Haveli. These are the recent developments which happened in the internal reorganization. But again, we will pay some attention to how exactly this happened and what is the impact. Now, this is something which we are going to discuss in the next class, and also we are going to discuss on the issue of integration of princely states. Integration of princely states. As I told that India was divided into British India and princely states. So the grey colored one is the British India, whereas the orange colored ones are princely states. How to integrate them into India? Now this is the third challenge the early rulers had to face. We'll see how they would have tackled these issues. So try to come prepared with the integration of Hyderabad, integration of Bhopal, integration of Junagadh, integration of Jammu Kashmir, at least some important princely state integration. Try to come prepared. So next class we will spend some time on this. So any questions till now? Or just give me a feedback. Are you okay with the format? I mean, if you have any operational difficulty or any other challenge in viewing or listening, please do let me know. Or are you comfortable with it? Okay, are you comfortable with the display is okay?
No,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. Okay.
No, sir, this way is good. Yeah, there was no challenge
And
except the
any
power
other
bit.
thing like you wanted to share? Like again, do not share the
Yeah.
feedback after the end of the class. Okay, after we complete the syllabus. So please do let me know if you have any challenge from where I mean the way we go ahead. Like am I fast? Am I slow? Or this is okay? You are able to follow. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. So if you have any challenges, do stop me at any
It's
time.
perfect, sir. Yeah, it's
And
great.
please do submit your assignments. So don't wait for the last moment. Okay, when I say next Saturday is the deadline, do not submit only on Friday night. Okay, try to submit it earlier so that we can actually review it and make the changes, and we'll make the assignment ready. So anything else you wanted to share? Yeah.
So, assignment So basically, you've told us to find out about like during the class, whatever
Yeah,
you've told,
yeah.
we have to
You can gather the information, and
gather
again,
information on that and
I'll
send
say
it
that
to
like keep it
you.
to be very precise. So very concise and very short. Are you just let me share my screen how to prepare. Maybe let me. So do let me know. Are you able to see my Word document? No. Okay. I think yeah.
No, sir.
Yeah.
So
I'll
we
tell
can
you how
do this,
we will do
gather
that.
it from
So
Lakshmikant, sir,
just
or
let
we
me
have to
share my Word
Google it.
document. Okay, please do let me know if you can see the Word document. Yeah, okay, thank you. So this is the way I am preparing the format for your
Yes.
preamble. Okay. Now, when you are preparing for preamble, like you'll see the words like sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic. Now, what I intend you to do is make a list of all the words which are there in the preamble. Then write down the definition, maybe 1 or 2 lines, not more than that. Again, in your own words. Okay, what you understand from the sovereignty, what do you understand from socialism, what you understand from secularism. Then write down what are the arguments which are challenging our sovereignty. Now, what challenges do you see that India is not a sovereign country, by which you can say that India, whether our sovereignism is in question, or whether our socialism is under threat, whether our secularism is under threat, whether democratic, are we really democratic or not? Are we really republic or not? What are the challenges you see? Again, here I suggest read as many articles in the newspapers as possible. Sometimes I'll be sharing some articles. Okay, try to go through them so you'll get an idea of what exactly happened. Then write down the arguments in support, maybe some 5-6 points here, 5-6 points here. So once you make this exercise, you will be done with your topic. So this is the way you have to prepare when you're preparing the notes. So again, I suggest don't spend, again, don't rewrite the same things which are there in Lakshmikant. That is not required. So from this perspective, I write like I told, as I'm preparing the notes within 100 pages, which should cover all your polity and constitution. But this notes I'm going to update as per your assignments only. Now, if you submit your assignments, you'll get the notes. Otherwise, also you'll get the notes, but with blank pages. Okay, so I suggest you submit, spend some time, quality time, and try to do the exercise and submit the assignments on time, so that we'll get the notes by the end of the class. Any questions? You can send it to ma'am. I'll get it.
Okay.
You can WhatsApp. If
We should
it is a
email it
soft
to
copy,
you,
it's
sir, or
better
send
for
it
me
to
to
ma'am.
edit. But if you are not comfortable with soft copy,
Okay.
even hard copy would do. You can submit the hard copy also. You can take a photo and send it to ma'am. I'll get that. That should be okay. Okay. And just a quick confirmation, are you able to see my video?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Am I visible? No? No one is able to? Okay, till now you're not able to see my video?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay,
No,
okay.
sir.
You can just see the
So maybe
presentation.
I'll see like how I can do. There are a lot of
No,
you
sir.
can say options which are there. Let me check, and maybe next class I'll try to rectify them. Okay, thank you. Have a good day and have a nice weekend. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
You too, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
You too.
Thank you, sir.